Out of the 19,000 licensed realtors in Austin or ABOR, only 4% actually closed a home in January. Are we in serious trouble? Jeremy Knight with the Knight Group, your favorite Austin realtor. So the January numbers dropped, and that is definitely one stat that I think people are worried about, especially realtors. But I want to talk with you about kind of what's happening this year, what we've already seen, what the January numbers mean. There's a lot of interesting data, and I find a lot of people want to just automatically say the market's crashing, and they follow these YouTube channels that put out kind of misleading information, and then they go, oh, Mr. Realtor, you don't put out enough data. Well, guess what? I got data for you. I got slides. I got all that good stuff today. So we're going to go through that. And all of you trolls that are coming over from those channels, welcome. Drop a comment below. Give us your best shot. For all those that have been watching this channel for a long time, thank you very much. I want to hear from you. Are you buying or selling in the market? What are you experiencing? Drop that comment below. Let's get started. What's interesting is the beginning of this year was actually really busy for me. And these numbers for the Austin numbers actually kind of show that as well. But I want to start with showing you a statistic that I was able to go through methodically and find and show you what's actually happening in the market on a yearly basis, because this might give some light to those people that just assume the market's crashing or that we are actually overpriced in the Austin area. Dare I say we might not be overpriced in the Austin area? So I have this chart right here, and I've been charting the sales prices really for the last 4 years. And there's something interesting that you'll have to notice here. So if we look at January 2019 compared to December 2019, you see that they actually saw a 14% growth in that 1 year. But then if you notice, January of 2020, it dropped quite a bit. So our year over year numbers actually dropped. Instead of that 14%, they're actually around 9%. And then here, let's look at this. So if we fast forward to December 2020, you'll see that prices are at 461, and then in January, prices dropped. Interesting. Okay, so let's fast forward to 2021 then, right? So December, what do we see? We see prices at 555, and then guess what? They drop in January 2022. Interesting. I had to think to myself, Jeremy, is this true? From December to January, prices drop? Because look, if you look at it, December, and this is why this is really important. I'm going to show you why this is really important. But in December, sales drop off because people are doing what? Christmas, holiday stuff. They don't care about buying homes. So you're going to see sales drop in December. What happens is those sales drop in December reflect the January numbers. So here's what you're seeing. December sales are slow. January numbers closed are low. So I pulled up this other chart just to look and see where we were with the years prior. So January 2016 to December, you see a 12% increase. But now look, January drops down, and we actually saw in January 2017 year over year negative numbers, because in January 16 was 299 and then 280 for the following January. But interesting, from January to December, you saw a 7.5 increase. But then if you look at 2017, you really see a 10% increase from January to December, but overall only 7.5% increase. Here's why that's going to be important in a second. And then 2018, we see the same thing, but we saw 22% growth in 2018, and then 14% growth if you go just January to December in 2019. Why do I tell you this information? It is because everybody keeps saying that prices have gone up so quickly, so fast, that it must not be real, that they have to come down. Well, if we look at this a little bit more detail, on average, we're looking at about 10% increase year over year for the last few years, except for 2016 to 17. But if you go 2016, January to December, you do see an increase. So why is that important? Well, if you actually did the math, around 12% growth is what we were seeing if you average it out. Let's go to 10% growth. From 10% growth in January 2019 to 2022, that actually puts you at a higher rate than we are at 525. So for those people saying that, oh, we are just too high, if you average it out, we're pretty close to being that average yearly growth year over year for the last 4 years. You just saw 2 years where things really went high. In fact, 2018, things went really high. But here's my second point I want to make by showing you this graph. Every single year, you see a decrease in prices in January. Well, if we look at the January numbers from December 2022 to January 2023, what do we see? prices did not decrease. Yeah, we went from 525 to 525. Now the MSA did decrease, but I'm only talking about Austin with these numbers. The MSA did decrease about $7,000. We'll show that in a second. And here's why this is super important. In December, we saw more homes sell than we did in January. But what's the interesting stat that we have to look at? More homes went under contract in January than they did in December. And this is where a lot of realtors are saying, oh man, we're seeing a heavier market, things are starting to move. It's because we actually saw a lot more homes go under contract in January compared to December. Now look, there is still a lot of pent-up demand. We did see mortgage applications increase in January. So it shows that there is demand still there. Now, does that mean that Austin is going to see a crazy 2023 with all these huge price increases? It could, for sure it could, but you're seeing interest rates actually now back around 6.8%. So that's definitely going to slow down probably the sales in the rest of February into March. Now, if we see that drop back down, it could definitely push that up. And the other thing that everybody's talking about for the Austin area is the amount of people that are getting laid off. Well, the January numbers aren't quite out yet to show us what the unemployment rate is, so we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Do I think that Austin's overpriced overall? I mean, for somebody trying to get in the market with a median of 525, I think it can be a challenge. But here's where I think if you're one of those people, and at the end of this video, I'm actually going to give my recommendations for buyers and sellers. But if you're a buyer looking this year, yes, interest rates are a lot higher, but you are going to have a lot more to choose from. Yes, we did start the beginning of this year at what, 8,800 units. In fact, right now, if we look at the numbers, we're at 9,100 units. Now, I'm under contract with quite a few clients right now. It's been a crazy beginning of the year. One thing that's really interesting to me though is that, and I think something that's going to limit what we do see as far as growth in 2023, is property taxes have gone up like crazy. One deal I'm working on right now is a multi-million-dollar deal, but what's interesting about this deal is the fact that the property taxes doubled from 2021 to 2022. So it's going to be hard for a lot of buyers to actually afford all the property taxes. Now, let's hope they come down a little bit in 2023. I highly doubt that's going to happen, but who knows? What's also pretty interesting is that I got a call from Bloomberg this week, and Bloomberg was telling me that, hey, Jeremy, there's so many rentals coming on the line in Austin this year that's got to impact the market, right? What are your thoughts? And I actually gave him to somebody else who, works in the rental industry. I guess my information that I could pull from this is that if you look at this chart, that Austin's really building about 18,000 units that are going to be on the ground this year. That's in the top 5. Yet you still have, Phoenix and other markets building a lot of inventory as well. There was a stat that came out that the city of Austin said that we need another 100,000 units to keep up with demand here in the Austin area. So I'm curious to see how that Bloomberg article comes out, but there still is a lot of demand for rentals because people can't afford these 525 prices. I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, yet I do think that if you look at their traditional line of growth for the area in Austin, that we're still on the same path, even though we saw 2 years of really high gains be back at 525. But what's also interesting is Zillow went out and said that, Austin is ice cold. And then literally 2 days ago, we have this article that comes out and talks about how that Austin is one of the top 5 markets for 2023. There's so many different ways that people are taking all this information. You have the people that are just praying that the market crashes because they can finally buy a home. I got to be honest with you, I would like to buy some more rental properties, but I just don't see rents catching up to prices yet. So it's hard for me to buy more rental properties. Yeah, there are spots that I found some good deals. So if you're one of those investors that's looking for a good deal, maybe you reach out to me, maybe you don't. All right, buyers and sellers, here's that information that I want to give you. For 2023, if you're somebody that's on the fence, getting ready to buy, I have a story to tell you. I have a client that purchased a home in 2017 when prices were, definitely lower than here. Yet they spent over the last few years paying this home, had 2 kids. Now they're way too big of a family for this home and they have to move up. The craziest thing, and this is why I think it's really important that people, if you're just renting for the last 5 years, here's where you might have missed out. This particular client was a first-time home buyer, right? They bought in a lower price point because that's what they could afford. Now they're bumping up their price point. And on top of that, when we sell their home, which is going to be listed soon, they're going to make a decent amount of money that they would have not have made if they had been renting over the last 5 years. So I think that's something you should think about. Now that's anecdotal. I would recommend to anybody that's looking to buy in 2023 that you absolutely consider holding for a minimum of 5 years, realistically, that's where you're going to see the most gains. Look, make sure you're getting a good deal. Make sure that your pricing and everything matches what you can actually afford. Don't go out and buy something over your means right now. And if you're one of those buyers that's on the fence, look, just make sure you do due diligence and make sure it actually is affordable for you and you can afford it. Now, a lot of people are going to tell me that's crazy talk, but the reality is that this is how I've grown my wealth, is by buying and moving up. And that's how you can do it as well. Now, it's not going to always be as easy as how I did it, but keep in mind, if you are somebody looking to buy, don't be so scared with all the negative stuff out there. Just make sure it fits you. Now, homeowners that are getting ready to sell, here's one piece of advice. Every listing that we've put on the market over the last month has gone under contract, because we're pricing it correctly. I'm letting my homeowners / sellers know really where the market is and what to expect. And those homes are selling because we're doing the marketing right, we're pricing it right, and we're doing all the things to get a home sold. So maybe don't go into it thinking that you can just put out this crazy price and you're going to get it. Now, you're probably going to hear how hot the market is right now. So you're thinking, okay, now we can price it high again. I would just warn you that this year is not going to be 2019, 2020, 21, 22. It's not going to be as high as those years. We will see a lot flatter movement throughout the year. So, Jeremy Knight, the Knight Group, what do you think? Drop a comment below.